bigger, our responsibility to interact with it becomes bigger. But it's not irrelevant to still be thinking about writing, even though that's happening.
I'm just responding to the
You have to talk to Mike.
Well, I have a question for the audience, actually, because all of this is, I think, pointing to, I do think, like, does dance criticism matter? Does it make a difference? And so it makes me pose a question to you, which is, if I invest time trying to see different artists so I can go to the Chronicle and say, I really think that this person who has this show in Counterpulse should be reviewed, and they wouldn't have reviewed it otherwise. If I get that in the paper, I'm not really actually doing that for my own gain. I'm actually doing that to help the artist and the dance community. So here's my question. Does it help, or am I wasting my energy?
Who wants to respond to that? Oh, okay. Yes.
Hi, my name is Pete. Yes, for me personally, I'm gonna first respond as a reader, which is that kind of writing is very useful to me. That's me personally. I can't see everything. I've read you guys for years. I tend to know what you tend to like and what you tend to not like. So even when you write about something that I might disagree with, I usually can know I'm gonna disagree with you over here. It's actually very valuable to me. I haven't taken exception to something that has been said here, that everybody is dancing in this country. I don't believe that. There used to be a time when we used to dance when the food came home, when the rains came or didn't come, and there's a lot of people watching. And I don't think we can make people want to like to either see dance or read about dance. I just don't think it's possible. So my question is actually, one of the things I talk about, I've been doing work for 20 years. Why don't people come see modern dance, in particular, proscenium modern dance? Well, some people would argue that they're not educated. I've heard this time and time again, and I say that's baloney. People like stuff or they don't like stuff. They'll go see it or they don't go see it. There's a small section of dance in the bookstore because I think there are very few people who want to read it. That's just my opinion. I'm not being bitter. I performed with people who want to come see my work. I'm very happy to have that small audience. So it's not a bitter statement I'm making. I just think it's truth. There's a very small number of people who want to see what I would consider traditional modern dance. And I don't think it needs to be interactive or new or different to be interesting. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but that's what it sounded like you were saying. And I take exception to that. I'm very old school and I'm very proud of it. And that's fine with me, because no one's doing that in this city. So in a sense, it's very new.
Right.
So my question to you, my question that I'm throwing back before I stop my diatribe is, I'm wondering if you guys feel like we feel as a traditional modern dancer, that the market's drying up, and how do you get it back? Maybe it wasn't really there. And I feel that way as a dancer. It's not a bitter statement. I find what you do very valuable, and I also find that people find what I do very valuable. But I'm wondering if the reason it's drying up is because there simply isn't a market for it. I'm just wondering. It's just a question.
Well, I guess I would just like to say I also am aware that, especially because I am an artist of sorts myself, I'm a writer, I'm aware that the goal is not always larger audiences. You don't necessarily want to make work that speaks to a larger audience. Sometimes you want to make something so I guess I want to say that I'm not necessarily market driven in what I'm trying to write, but sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say that, gosh, there's so many things I want to say, but this idea, I'm one of those persons that is looking for books on dance and looking everywhere, and I think that it's not that there's not a market. We're so diverse. I do classical Indian dance. I don't particularly like most modern dance, but when I say that, there is a lot that I've seen that I like, but it's not a genre that I have educated myself about. I really don't know that. I mean, of course, I'm familiar with Martha Graham and the greats, and I read Twyla Tharp's book and about Balanchine just because I'm interested in dance, but it's not what I can relate to. It's not what I agree with, a lot of it, and I'm classical Indian dance, and this whole idea. So we're so incredibly diverse. I mean, if we were a sports crowd, we would, I think, be able to relate on a lot of things that we don't relate to because of our incredible diversity. And this whole idea of white and immigrant, just the, I'm trying to answer your question, but to get there, I have to kind of go. The idea, using this word about disobedient, that's an incredibly white concept. In classical Indian dance, to be exceptional, to break molds, to be innovative, is actually to go deep into what is maybe what someone would think is obedient, and to sort of find your own identity through that and recreate it in a very specific, very contextualized way. So it's like, well, I think that it's not that there's not a market, it's that we don't know how to relate to each other. And this whole idea also of, building our own audiences, and I very few of us go to each other's, we may know about each other, we may read reviews, but to really want to understand each other and really want to get interested. Oh, what is class? Is it, is it ritual? Is it irrelevant? I mean, what's relevant to me is incredibly irrelevant to some of you. What's relevant to you is incredibly irrelevant to me. So I think it's not that there's not a market. And what your question about is, does it matter? It matters so much to us. I mean, when we, the Chitrashdas Dance Company presented a Kathak festival, the first historical festival ever of its kind in America, Rita came, and a lot, you came too, Rachel. She came to the all-day symposiums to learn about the history and the context. And even then, and I'm not trying to speak for her, even then I'm sure she struggled tremendously with how to write about it, because not understanding the culture that it comes from, not understanding the vocabulary. If you don't understand a language, how can you know what's trying to be communicated? You can only go by, by line, by movement, by how you're touched by something, but you can't really understand what the artist is trying to say if you don't understand the language. So it's incredibly valuable for Rita to come and learn and write about it, and Rachel too, for those 3 days and see the whole context of it, because she's not only educating herself in order to even talk about something that's not white, but and something that's incredibly relevant to millions and millions of people. But she is communicating that to other people in San Francisco and maybe around the world, so that they might get an idea of that this is not just some exotic ritual, that this is something that's very much alive. It's not a museum piece. It's constantly changing, particularly in classical Indian dance, because it's not codified like ballet and even modern. I mean, there's a Graham technique. It's not codified. It's oral tradition. It's passed down generation to. It changes so quickly. It changes so fast. What is performed today was not performed 20 years ago, or not even 10 years ago. And definitely not even anything like close to 50 years ago. So it's changing so fast, but nobody in this room probably knows what it was like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So they have no frame to judge it. You have no frame. So it becomes irrelevant to you because you don't know what it's about, or I'm not talking about you personally.
Charlotte, thank you so much for your comments. And I want to make sure that other audience members get to have questions and comments.
But yes, thank you for that. Yes, it's important. It's important
Great.
to our communities. Sorry. Sorry to go on.
I just have no answers, but I have lots of experience being in the dance world as a dancer and a dance teacher and a writer, whose book I hope will be in your hands in the next 2 weeks. Today I picked up a book, speaking of Isadora. It's a comic book about Isadora. And to me, it's just the perfect object, because it is taking the pop stuff, that reader who would rather have graphics than many words, and it's hot, right? Because she's still the hottest, sexiest thing that ever came out of San Francisco, because she wore fewer clothes than anybody in her time. But what I think about